You've probably heard this story before. Netflix has decided they want to take a historical figure and basically blackwash the character to where anybody of historical significance from the continent of Africa must be black, like Black Americans, because that's, I guess, maybe some people's only point of reference for the continent, although there is a lot of diversity among the racial background and obviously the cultural backgrounds and stuff like that. One such case, obviously, was the Netflix Cleopatra docu-series. Now they've announced that they're going to be making a Hannibal Barca movie for Netflix, and they are casting Denzel Washington. The big problem is Hannibal Barca isn't just a regular dude. He's actually one of the greatest military leaders of all time. He is the great hero of the Carthaginian empire, which died at the hands of the Romans, a couple of thousand years ago. He's still the national hero of the people of Tunisia, and shockingly, they have taken a little bit of umbrage with the casting of Denzel Washington as Hannibal Barca. Denzel Washington being cast in Antoine Fuqua's upcoming Netflix movie as ancient Carthaginian General Hannibal is sparking some controversy in Tunisia, the home country of the great military commander. According to French newspaper Courrier International, there are complaints about depicting the Carthaginian general as a black African being made in the media and the Tunisian parliament. Member of Parliament Yasmin Mami has pointed out that Hannibal, who was born in 247 BC in Carthage, now known as Tunis, the Tunisian capital, was of West Asian Semitic origin. There is a risk of falsifying history. We need to take position on this subject, the Tunisian politician reportedly stated. And for those of you who don't know, Carthage was just a great empire back in the day around the time of the Romans. They were in modern day Tunis, but their influence spread all the way up to Spain. They definitely had conquered the Iberian Peninsula for quite some time. In fact, that's where a lot of Hannibal Barca's great battles happened before he ended up taking his army to Italy, and that's basically what he's most famous for. He certainly was not a black African man. He was actually more in line with modern-day Lebanon. He was a Phoenician, so he certainly did not look like Denzel Washington. In fact, there are busts of the man. We don't know exactly what his skin tone was, but there are recreations based on the people in the area, where they historically come from, what they historically look like, and what they believed he looked like. And I must say, he was quite a handsome man, and he was an awesome general, and he's somebody that if you do not know who Hannibal Barca is, you should definitely read up on, because he's absolutely awesome. In fact, I'll talk a little bit about that here at the end when they do talk about some of the details of the movie, but I can absolutely understand why my editor, Manaf, who you don't know this, but I have an editor, he is from Tunisia. This is one of his heroes, and we've actually talked about Hannibal in the past, would be upset about this and would think that it was bad casting because there might not ever be another Hannibal Barca movie ever made. And once Hollywood puts a face on a character, it's kind of almost like set in stone for 3/4 of the world. Certainly a lot of people are going to know that's not what he looked like, or that's not the real lineage of a Hannibal Barca. But 3/4 of the world are going to be completely oblivious because they believe Netflix are presenting a factual representation of who Hannibal Barca was and what he looked like, and certainly what his exploits are. There are some great examples of this. If you watch Braveheart to learn about William Wallace, you will be much dumber for that, because almost nothing that happened in Braveheart's life, William Wallace's life, is depicted correctly in that movie. They do take a lot of liberties, and I will give them this. There is a difference between a docu-series, something that's supposed to be documentary-like and very heavy on the facts and displaying things as they were supposed to have been at the time, and an actual Hollywood movie. This seems to be more in the latter. And there are some people in Tunisia that are more understanding of hiring Denzel Washington, an amazing actor with a lot of pedigree and certainly a lot of box office pull, as Hannibal Barca. Tunisian culture minister Hayat Katat Guermazi had a different, more pragmatic take on the matter. It's fiction. It is theirs, Netflix's, right to do what they want, she responded. According to French newspaper Le Monde, Hannibal is a historical figure, and we are proud that he was Tunisian, but what can we do? She went on to note that she is trying to negotiate Netflix to shoot at least a portion of the film in Tunisia. And it would only be a portion because almost everything significant that actually happened in Hannibal's life did not happen in Tunisia. As a young boy, he was shipped off to be with his father in Spain, on the Iberian Peninsula, which Carthage ruled at the time. His father died. Eventually, he became a general himself, and then he's most known for his campaigns in Italy, although he did return to Carthage in less than ideal circumstances and actually met defeat eventually. But we'll get to that kind of stuff. So I can understand where the culture minister is coming from. It is not supposed to be a 100% historical accurate depiction of Hannibal and his life, like the Netflix series, docu-series was purporting to be. But then again, I can understand why people like my friend Manaf, who's editing the videos, and if you ever notice there are boring videos that are edited and then exciting videos that are edited, the exciting ones are the ones that Manaf did. He's going to do this one right here. I can see why he would be upset with the situation because this is his national hero. And if he only gets to see him one time in a big-ass movie production, I might want to see that hero portrayed more directly what he actually looked like. It would be like taking George Washington and, I don't know, casting an Asian dude. Sure, you can probably get a good performance out of it, and certainly you can take George Washington and show some of the great battles and why he is the great hero of America in a movie like that. But it is going to feel weird if you're actually American and you like American history, especially if you're a fan of George Washington, which I am, and you're going, fuck me, they couldn't find like a white dude to play George Washington? He's not Asian. Why is this guy in the movie? And then obviously the laughter turns to a little bit of, I don't know, anger or something like this. And you're like, God, it just chaps my ass. Now, there was a time in Hollywood where whenever they would make a historical picture or maybe something from epic times and stuff like that, where you would have people from the Middle East or Africa or other places that certainly were not white, they would normally be portrayed by white people. But at that time, like 80% of all of America, I think, was white. And that certainly is not that time anymore. There are certainly actors out there of notoriety with stature that could depict Hannibal Barca a little bit more closely to how he was actually in his lifetime while he was out there defeating a bunch of armies, notably the Romans, which was absolutely awesome. Although there's no denying that Denzel Washington isn't like chopped fucking liver. It's Denzel fucking Washington. The dude's awesome. He's basically awesome in almost everything that he's in. Although he is going to be in Gladiator 2, which is a movie I don't even know why is being made. And I've always been wanting to see a Hannibal Barca movie. And these are some of the details that we do know about the production. The still untitled film about the Carthaginian general will be written by John Logan, the 3-time Academy Award winner who scribed Martin Scorsese's The Aviator and Ridley Scott's Gladiator. According to the official logline, the movie is based on real-life warrior Hannibal, who is widely regarded as one of the greatest military commanders in history. The film covers the pivotal battles he led against the Roman Republic during the Second Punic War. Hannibal invaded Italy while riding a northern African war elephant under his lead. The Carthaginians won key victories against the Romans, allowing Hannibal to occupy the majority of southern Italy for 15 years. Eventually, Hannibal was defeated by the Romans at the Battle of Zama after they counter-invaded North Africa. And that is the really cool part, because Hannibal decided he was tired with the Romans and he needed to go and invade their home territory, because the Romans are always invading everyone else because they were protected, by the Alps. So he said, fuck it, I'm going to take my horde of elephants and my army of 50,000 men, and we're going to go over the Alps with elephants into Italy. And he actually did it. He showed up in Italy with war elephants. Now, he didn't bring them all there because obviously some of them died along the way. And he did lose, I believe, about half of his army along the way. They either left or died actually going through the Alps, but he made it there, and the Romans could not stop the man. And I love learning about history. If you are a member of the Patreon, sometimes we will divert into great historical stories and some of the things I'm really interested in. Great military leaders is absolutely one of those. And when they do stuff that is that daring, taking elephants from Africa into the fucking Alps and actually coming out on the other side of Italy with them still intact, or at least a portion of them, I think that stuff's cool. It's right up there with Alexander in the Siege of Tyre. If you never heard of that one, he had his great army. There was a city-state. It was actually an island, and they were really rich because I think they made some type of red dye. It was because of like a snail or something that only they made, and it was like the dye of kings. Like if you had this kind of dye, it meant you were very, very rich. They were going by the island of Tyre. He said he wanted to go in there and visit the temples and pray. They told him to bug off. They would never be allowed foot in their city. He said, fuck that. He stopped his army for 6 months, built a land bridge out to Tyre, and sacked the whole thing, burned it to the ground. I like that kind of dedication, and there is no island of Tyre anymore. It's the peninsula of Tyre to this fucking day, because Alexander the Great was absolutely awesome. There's another great one, the Battle of Alesia from Julius Caesar. Most people know who Julius Caesar is, the first great Roman dictator and all that kind of stuff. Well, he got that, all the battlefield. He won all of his money and acclaim to become the emperor of Rome. and he was fighting, I think they were Gaelics, but it was definitely in France. The guy's name is Vercingetorix. It's something weird like that. There's like X's and Z's in that name. But he was taking the town of Alesia, and it turns out they had called in reinforcements. There was a whole army coming behind his Roman troops. So they built a wall around the city of Alesia to isolate it so they couldn't get any food or whatever because they wanted to starve him out. And then they built a second wall around his entire army so the reinforcements couldn't get to them. Absolutely amazing stuff. Julius Caesar, I tip my hat to you. And Doc and I have big time differences of opinions when it comes to the greatness of Julius Caesar. Something more modern that I thought was audacious and absolutely awesome is the Battle of Inchon, or actually the Inchon Landing is the better word for it. That's Douglas MacArthur, certainly a more well-known modern military leader. The landing of Inchon certainly doesn't get the pub or notoriety of D-Day, but it's absolutely cool. The fact that they would do that and the amount of risk that went into that, and the idea that if this doesn't work, we're all going to die. No one's going to come here to save us was really, really cool. So I like stuff like this. It gets me really excited. I want to see it on the big screen, and I want to see the history and the story of Hannibal Barca. And I would prefer if they actually found a lead actor that probably looks just a bit more like Hannibal Barca looked at the time. I wish America could get over the idea that everyone in Africa are just black. That's not the case. There's a lot of ethnic diversity in Africa. There's a lot of cultural diversity in Africa. If you go into Northern Africa and you start asking people if they're black, they're going to get mad at you because they do not consider themselves that. They're much more in line and related to like the Middle East and stuff like that, not only with the way that they look, but the things that they believe in the history of their countries. And I wish we could get our heads around this, that actually Africa is a diverse continent and there's a lot of different things to it. And not everybody in Africa looks like African Americans. That's just not the case because culturally they are absolutely different. But for some reason, Americans especially, and I imagine it goes to Europe as well, just cannot get their heads around that there's a little bit of diversity there. And I do not blame the people of Tunisia for getting upset about this. I certainly don't blame the people of Egypt for getting upset about the Cleopatra docu-series or whatever like that. I think Netflix, if they really want to go out there and portray these historical figures, probably need to do a little bit more homework. They might want to do a little bit more research and find people that really do physically exemplify these historically great, amazing people and their lives on the big screen. And I do think it's important, but I can understand there's a difference between a Hollywood movie production and a docuseries. So I don't know. It's weird, but I definitely am on Team Modif on that one. Thank you very much for editing this video, sir. I know this is a big time hero of yours, and I know he was also not happy about it. Let's just put it that way. Now, we are doing a lot of great things here on the channel on YouTube, but we're doing even more great things here at Thinking Critical on the Patreon. We do at least 7 hours of brand new content every single week. A 2-hour podcast with my good friend Aaron Sparrow talking about pop culture. 2-hour podcast with my good friend Jim from Weird Science reviewing all the new comic books of the week every Thursday, the good and the bad. And we also talk about what it's like to be a dad in 2023, moving into 2024. 2 hours of new content with Doc doing Q&A, answering all the questions from the Patreon supporters. We do another unfiltered version where the 2 videos you get per week on YouTube with Doc, they are not filtered down and edited. You get all the actual stuff that he says in there. I also do a Patreon exclusive comic book review every week. I also do the comic book solicitations for DC and Marvel when they come out on the Patreon exclusively. So there's another hour and a half of extra content coming out each and every month. And starting next year, we're going to be reviewing some classic stuff. We're going to go Miller World beginning to end, starting with Wanted #1, going all the way to Big Game #5. And we're also going to do Planetary from Warren Ellis, starting issue 1, going to issue number 27. And then we're going to find out another awesome classic series to review after that. And I definitely invite you to check out the link in the video description and consider supporting the Patreon and Thinking Critical in 2024.